Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a concept that lots of us are chasing, but maybe don't fully grasp: discipline.
Right.
Our mission here is to really dig into Ryan Holiday's book, Discipline is Destiny, using the sources you sent over and pull out the most, actionable stuff.
Yeah.
We want to explore how discipline isn't really about punishing yourself or saying no to everything fun.
Not at all.
It's more about profound self-mastery, maybe even a deeper kind of freedom, and ultimately living a life with more meaning, more impact.
It's a fantastic journey, actually. It takes us back to what the ancient philosophers, particularly the Stoics, called temperance.
Temperance.
Which is basically that core ability to, manage your impulses, keep desires in check, and really make sure your actions line up with your purpose.
Right.
And what's really fascinating is how Holiday presents discipline. It's not just like a nice quality to have.
Yeah.
No, he argues it's both predictive and deterministic. It actively shapes your future, making success, way more likely. And for some, it really paves the road to greatness.
Wow. Deterministic. That's a strong word.
It is. And he says, look, whether life throws good stuff or bad stuff your way, we're all constantly standing at what he calls a Herculean crossroads.
A Herculean crossroads. Okay, that sounds significant, like something we face every day.
Exactly. Every single day. It's an old metaphor, from the Greek myth. Young Hercules has to choose easy life of pleasure or the harder path of virtue.
Ah, I think I remember that one.
Right. So Holiday uses it to talk about those constant little choices we make. The battle between our, let's say, higher self that wants long-term good and the lower self that just wants comfort right now.
The part that wants the donut versus the part that wants to stick to the plan.
Precisely. Or scrolling versus working, or lashing out versus staying calm. It's this ongoing internal negotiation, often really quiet, that ends up deciding our destiny.
Okay, so if we're always at this crossroads, this fork in the road, how does Holiday define discipline or temperance to help us actually choose that better path? What does it look like in practice?
Well, he puts it pretty bluntly, which I kind of appreciate. He says it's the ability to keep your ass in line.
Huh. Okay, straight to the point.
Exactly. But it's important to see it's not about being a drill sergeant to yourself constantly. It's about the practice. Saying no when you need to, building good habits, setting clear boundaries, getting through tough stuff without falling apart.
So strength, but also like structure.
Yes, and balance. It's giving your all, but also knowing when to hold back, when to rest, finding that sweet spot. He calls it command of oneself physically, mentally, spiritually.
Right.
Demanding your best, even, and this is key, when no one is looking. That's the real test, isn't it? It takes courage to live like that, to steer your own ship instead of just drifting.
That makes a lot of sense. So let's clarify that point you touched on. If temperance isn't deprivation, what is it? Why is that distinction so important?
That's really the core of it. Holiday stresses it's not about making life miserable or joyless. It's about being intentional, making reasonable choices, not getting, consumed or carried away by every little whim or external drama.
Okay.
Think of that old metaphor, the charioteer. Winning the race isn't just about going fast.
It's about control.
Exactly. Firm grip on the reins, balancing speed and direction, strictness and maybe kindness to the horses, navigating the turns without crashing. Without that self-discipline, Holiday argues, any success you find is probably going to be temporary.
Right, you burn out or crash.
Or your potential just fizzles out.
Yeah.
And that leads to misery, self-blame, being dependent on things outside yourself. Which brings us back to freedom. He says freedom is the opportunity for self-discipline.
Ah, interesting. So freedom isn't just doing whatever you want.
No. True freedom is the ability to act according to your values, your higher self, because you're not a slave to your impulses. That's liberation.
And this isn't just ancient philosophy. You see it in modern leaders too, right? Like Holiday mentions Eisenhower.
Yeah, great example. Eisenhower's whole approach, his ability to manage the massive complexity of D-Day and leading the Allied forces, it stemmed from incredible self-control, restraint, simplicity even. He mastered himself first.
Which made others trust him.
Precisely. It's a huge contrast to figures like, say, Hitler or even Alexander the Great. Immense initial power, huge impact, but ultimately undone by their own lack of self-mastery, their unchecked egos or desires.
So that internal order really does come first. You can't lead others if you can't lead yourself.
It seems to be a fundamental truth. If you can't command yourself, what can you truly command? How can you be truly free?
Okay, so building on that internal command, I found the way Holiday talks about the body really striking. He calls it our glory, our hazard, and our care. It's not just about looking good, it's about fortitude.
Exactly. This is where it gets really practical. The body isn't just this, vehicle we carry our brain around in. It's a training ground.
A training ground for the mind.
For the mind, for the soul, for your character. Think about the Stoics again in that Roman tradition. They practiced endurance, eating simply, living modestly. It wasn't because they hated pleasure.
Yeah.
It was about building resilience, preparing themselves, so when life got tough, and it always does, they wouldn't break. It wasn't about getting ripped for the beach. It was about building the inner strength to stay true to their path.
That makes me think of Gehrig, the Iron Horse, playing over 2,000 consecutive games. That's just mind-blowing endurance.
It's an incredible story, isn't it? And it wasn't just showing up. Gehrig is like a masterclass in physical discipline, serving something bigger. He played through injuries, pain.
I read that anecdote about the dugout cushions.
Yes, tearing the cushions off a bench because, as he saw it, getting comfortable was the enemy. That's intense.
It really is.
It shows how the truly dedicated are often harder on themselves than any outside person could ever be. But it wasn't about self-punishment. It was about ensuring his body obeyed his will, served his team. That's the link. Physical rigor forges mental toughness.
And it's not always those huge feats of endurance either. It's the small daily stuff, like Toni Morrison waking up early, always early, to write. Finding clarity before the world woke up.
Yes, those consistent habits. They build momentum. Even Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man on earth at the time, wrote about his internal struggle just to get out of bed.
Huh. That's actually comforting to hear.
Right. He'd argue with himself. Were you born to feel nice under the blankets, or were you born to do something, to do your job as a human being?
Wow. So even emperors wrestle with the snooze button.
It seems so. But it really underscores a critical point Holiday makes. Our physical choices directly impact our mental state, our ability to function effectively.
Like sleep.
Exactly. Admiral James DeVritis realized that sleep discipline is absolutely vital for peak performance, especially under pressure. Yet so many of us are, as Holiday puts it, irresponsible or undisciplined evening persons.
Guilty. Staying up too late scrolling.
We all do it. But that lack of discipline at night leads to exhaustion, fog, bad decisions the next day. It shows how discipline builds on itself, or the lack of it drags you down. Discipline begets discipline.
Okay.
Make that small commitment like getting enough sleep, and that success makes the next discipline choice a bit easier. It's like strengthening a muscle. Every little win adds up.
But there's a danger here too, isn't there? The book warns about taking it too far, about losing balance.
Oh, absolutely. It's crucial. Discipline isn't about grinding yourself into dust. We have to manage the load. Holiday uses the tragic story of James Forrestal, the first U.S. Secretary of Defense.
Right. He worked himself to death, essentially.
He did. Brilliant, incredibly driven, but he couldn't turn it off, couldn't find balance. He lost perspective, and it contributed to his breakdown and suicide. So yes, push yourself, demand your best, but know your limits. Know when to rest, when to step back. Otherwise, discipline itself becomes destructive.
Okay, so the body is the training ground, but it needs a balance. What about the mind itself, the character? How does discipline shape that inner landscape?
Well, if the physical is the training ground, the mind is maybe the main battlefield. This is where Holiday really drills down on quitting bad habits, those things that make us slaves to impulse.
Like Feynman and drinking.
Exactly. Richard Feynman, the physicist, he noticed this disconcerting desire for alcohol, felt it gaining power over him, and just stopped instantly.
Wow.
His reasoning. Nothing he felt should have that kind of power over him. That immediate rejection of anything trying to control you from the inside. That's core to self-mastery.
Nothing should have that kind of power. That really resonates. It links back to that idea of freedom, doesn't it? You mentioned Seneca asking, "Show me a man who isn't a slave." What was he getting at there?
Seneca was digging deep into what freedom really means. He argued that even powerful people, slave owners in his time, could be enslaved.
How so?
By their responsibilities, their ambition, their fear of losing status or wealth. So real freedom isn't about your external situation. It's internal. It's about being free from those inner chains. And Holiday gives us a really useful test for our habits, our possessions, even our commitments. If it was invented today, would you start it?
That's a good question.
It forces you to evaluate things based on their current value, not just inertia. Just because you started doing something doesn't mean you have to keep doing it if it's no longer serving you.
Like avoiding unnecessary stuff.
Right, like Cato the Elder, rejecting luxury for independence. Or, in a really extreme case, Reuben Carter in prison, stripping away every comfort so nothing more could be used against him or taken away. It's about achieving what Michelangelo called autonomy. That's the real wealth.
Autonomy,
Yeah.
the ability to direct your own life. And this applies just as much to how we react to things, right? To external pressures. Hemingway's grace under pressure.
Absolutely crucial. That poise when things get tough.
Aha.
Holiday shares these great examples. Arthur Ashe Sr. facing blatant anti-Semitism trying to buy land. Instead of reacting with anger, which would have been understandable,
He just quietly persisted.
quietly, patiently, got the deal done. Or think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She famously learned to be a little deaf to insults and slights.
Why?
Because, as she understood, someone else's lack of self-control is not a justification for abandoning our own. That ability to choose your response, not just react, that's disciplined character in action, maintaining your own center when chaos erupts around you.
That's huge. Which makes me think about ambition. We're often told ambition is good, drive is good, but Holiday warns about tempering it. Where's the line?
That's such a critical point. Temper your ambition. It's vital. The book points out the irony of Napoleon writing an essay as a young man warning against exactly the kind of insatiable ambition that later consumed him.
Wow. He warned himself.
He did. Unchecked ambition, Holiday argues, becomes like a violent and unthinking fever. It clouds your judgment, makes you reckless, hurts not just you, but everyone around you. The discipline here is knowing when enough is enough, reining in the ego, seeing when your drive starts doing more harm than good.
And it's not just ambition that can turn toxic. The book also calls out perfectionism.
Right. Perfectionism is a vice, he says flat out. Martha Graham, the legendary choreographer in the example here,
What happened with her?
she apparently got completely paralyzed by her own incredibly high standards, just couldn't finish things, couldn't release her work into the world. She got totally bogged down.
So she couldn't ship her work, as they say.
Exactly. It took others, like her musical director, literally pushing her to just get it done, get it out there. In that sense, Holiday argues, finishing something is an act of incredible discipline. Overcoming that fear of imperfection, that need for it to be absolutely flawless, and actually producing something. Sometimes done really is better than perfect, especially if perfect means never finishing.
Okay, so we've covered discipline in the body, in the mind, tempering ambition, overcoming perfectionism. How do we pull all this together? How do we make this part of our actual daily lives? What's the plan for continuous improvement?
Yeah, the practical application, it really comes down to committing to getting better every day. It's an old idea, really. Socrates believed we cannot remain as we are. We're always either growing or declining.
And Tom Brady is a modern example.
A perfect modern example. Obsessed not just with winning the next game, but with improving some tiny aspect of his technique, his preparation, his diet, every single day. It's not just about the big goal, it's the process.
This sounds like Kaizen. Is that the idea?
Exactly. Kaizen, that Japanese philosophy of continuous incremental improvement. It means you're always ratcheting up the standard for yourself.
Even when you're already good.
Especially then. You never plateau.
Yeah.
You're always looking for those small edges, those little ways to grow. It's a mindset that says improvement is always possible, always necessary. It's a lifelong journey of refining yourself.
And this focus on self-improvement, it shouldn't just stay internal, right? How does it connect to how we interact with others?
That's a really important link. This intense focus on your own standards allows you to adopt that incredibly powerful maxim. Tolerant with others, strict with yourself.
Yay-ning.
Meaning you hold yourself to an incredibly high bar, you demand your best effort, but you don't necessarily impose those same exact standards on everyone around you. You allow for human imperfection in others.
So you can be demanding of yourself, but compassionate towards others.
Precisely. Marcus Aurelius was famous for this. Living this way, striving yourself but understanding others, it actually makes your discipline contagious. People see your example, your quiet consistency, and it inspires them to make others better. Not through nagging or judgment, but just through your presence.
And part of making others better, part of that outward ripple effect, is sharing the load. I was really struck by the Harry Belafonte story about the Kings.
Oh, that's such a powerful example of disciplined leadership. Belafonte saw that Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King were drowning in the daily demands of life while trying to lead a massive movement.
So he stepped in.
He personally paid for staff, a secretary, a housekeeper to help them. He realized that by lifting those domestic burdens, he was giving them something invaluable. Time, peace of mind. He was making them stronger and more effective for the cause.
That's more than just generosity.
It's strategic discipline from a leader. Recognizing your own limits, yes, but also seeing how enabling others is sometimes the most effective use of your own resources and energy.
Hmm.
It's prioritizing the mission above your own need to do everything, or even above just individual charity. It's understanding that sharing the burden strengthens the whole effort.
So when you put it all together, self-discipline really does shape our destiny, but it's also, as Holiday says, our obligation.
It really is an obligation to ourselves, maybe to the world. And it's not about being perfect. It's about the commitment, the effort, doing your best. Admiral Rickover, who was famously tough, evaluated Jimmy Carter not on whether he got every answer right, but on whether he gave his absolute maximum effort.
It's the trying that counts.
It's the consistent, disciplined effort. And it requires endurance. You will fail. Discipline means you get back up, you learn, you adapt, you keep going. And crucially, discipline is also about knowing what not to do.
Saying no.
Saying no, knowing when to stop, when to change course, like Rocky Marciano retiring undefeated at his peak because he knew his body was done. That refusal, that ability to walk away even from success when it's the right time, that's also profound discipline.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, what we've really explored today, drawing from Holiday's discipline is destiny, is that this isn't some grim restriction. It's actually a path.
A path to freedom.
To freedom, yeah, and to unlocking what we're capable of, living a fuller, more intentional life. It's this constant daily negotiation with our lower selves.
That Herculean crossroads again.
Exactly. Played out in how we care for our bodies, manage our urges, keep our ambitions in check, and just show up consistently. It really starts with mastering yourself.
Absolutely. It's all about becoming the best that you are capable of becoming. You conquer yourself internally first. That's why figures like Antoninus or Marcus Aurelius are remembered as first citizens. It was their character, built through discipline, not just their job title. Their external impact flowed from that internal work.
And what's really interesting is that the journey doesn't stop when you achieve something. Success actually demands more discipline, not less, to maintain it, to handle it well.
It's a lifelong practice. There's no finish line where you can just coast.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening, reflecting on all this.
Consider this. If real discipline means finding that autonomy, that inner strength, partly by getting comfortable being uncomfortable and always aiming for that kaizen, that small daily improvement, what's one small discipline choice you can make today, right now? Something small that starts echoing towards the destiny you want to create.